Hi friends, it's Andrea. We're here in my new creative space. I'm really excited to give you a look around and talk to you more about the process that I went through to create this little haven. I'm also going to be designing on the fly with you. I'm going to show you how to make this sweet a notepad caddy. It has 4 mesh pockets, one on each side, that are perfect for your washi tape, your binder clips, your paper clips, small rolls of stickers, and cute little markers. I have these great chunky notepads inside that I received for my birthday. They're so much fun. And there's a little space for some extras. This is a great caddy that measures approximately 5.5 inches by 5.5 inches all the way around. You could easily reverse that and sport your mesh pockets on the inside of this. You can also fold over that top edge for a completely different look there. I used all one fabric, but you're welcome to use a contrasting or complementary fabric for the lining, which will add another layer of interest. So if this all sounds like fun to you, do me a huge favor, give the video a thumbs up and we'll jump right in. All right, so I have cut off 4 6-inch wide full cuts of fabric from that yardage, and I am going to stack those up nice and even. These are 6 inches wide by the full cut, and this is 45-inch fabric. So I'm going to line those all up nice and tidy so that I can cut off 6-inch blocks from this. So I'm going to true up that edge and start cutting 6-inch squares. All right, so now I have a stack of 6-inch mesh squares and 6-inch fabric squares, and then I have 3 inches wide and 29 inches long, and I have pressed those in half long ways. Then I've opened them up and pressed those raw edges in towards the center, and then folded that over again and pressed that long ways. These are going to become the trim along the top of my mesh pockets. So I am working on a Juki TL2000 QI today. I have a 9014 needle in there, and I have some of my preferred Aurifil quote weight cotton thread in here. I believe that's 50 weight, and my stitch length is set at 3.5. So the first thing I want to do is create my little mesh pocket. So I'm going to take this 6-inch square and I am going to fold that in half to create a 3 by 6-inch pocket. And then I'm going to take my trim here and I'm going to tuck those raw edges up inside of that trim. I'm going to go ahead and clip that trim on top of this here so that I can make several mesh pockets at one time. I know I would like for each caddy to have a pocket on each side, so there are 4 sides to this cube, so I would like to have 4 mesh pockets. Now I'm just going to stitch right down the open edge of my trim, and I'm going to be capturing all the layers of the fabric as well as the mesh in this stitch. Now I have 4 mesh pockets prepped, so I can go ahead and cut those right in between. And there was just a smidgen of excess left over there. And now I can bring over my body panels and position those mesh pockets right on there. I want them to be 1 inch up from the bottom. So this is what the panels will look like prepped, and I'm going to prep 4 of those because this is a cube, so it has 4 sides. So my 4 mesh pocket panels prepped. So I am going to stitch down the right hand side of each pocket across the base and up the left hand side. And now I have my 4 mesh pocket panels prepped. I am going to need 1 additional square for the base of this. And so we're going to be using the T method of construction. So we'll begin by positioning 2 of the mesh panels right sides facing. I'm going to line up the tops of those pockets and the right hand edge, and using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, I'm going to stitch down the right hand edge. And now 2 of my panels are joined. I'm going to open those up. I'm going to take another mesh pocket panel, position that right sides facing on what will now be the center panel. I'm aligning those pocket tops and that right hand edge and stitching down that right hand side using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And now I have a 3-way panel with 3 mesh pockets. I'm going to set that aside for just a moment, bring over my remaining mesh pocket panel and my base panel and position that right sides facing, and I'm going to stitch along that bottom edge using that same 3/8 of an inch. And now I have a 2-way panel with 1 mesh pocket, and this will become my base. So I want to take my 3-way panel, bring it up here on the machine deck. This is the tops of the pockets. This is the top of my pocket. This is my base. I'm going to center my base panel on top of that center 3-way panel. I'm going to stitch seam to seam that is different than end to end. You can feel where those seams are, but you could also mark 3/8 of an inch from each end. You're going to come in 3/8 of an inch and start right on that seam, and you're going to stop sewing 3/8 of an inch right on that seam. All of my stitching to this point has been reinforced with a back stitch at the beginning and the end. Now I have a T, hence the T method. The next step in this process is to align the side of the tri-folding panel with that far mesh pocket panel. So just bring those up and align those sides and stitch from the top to the seam. So you're stopping 3/8 of an inch from the bottom. And now I'm going to bring up that remaining side, align those pocket tops, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to stitch though from the bottom seam. So I'm coming in 3/8 of an inch to the top. And now I have what very much resembles a cube. So now I just have to close up the bottom. So I'm going to pull this fabric taut, line up those sides, and stitch seam to seam. And I'm going to repeat that process on the opposite side, pulling that fabric taut, lining up those panels, and stitching seam to seam. All right, and now I have an absolutely perfect cube, and all my pocket tops are aligned beautifully. So these mesh pockets are going to be on the exterior of my cube. I did not select an interfacing for this project because the contents that I'm holding inside of this are very rigid and will offer this basket its stability. In addition, the fabric that I'm using is a little heavier weight, and as you can see, stands on its own. If you are working with quilt weight cotton or something a little lighter, and or you would like more stability, fusible fleece would be a wonderful choice for this project, as would quilt batting or Annie soft and stable. You may also even select to work with the Pellon 808. Just be advised, the interfacing is going to result in a smaller cargo area. So I measured this precisely for my contents. Yours with interfacing will be a little bit more snug, all right? So I'm going to take the corners of each panel here and open that seam and fold that over 1/2 inch and clip that. And I'm just folding back the seam so there's an even amount of fabric on both sides and folding that over 1/2 inch. You can also press your seams open. And then after I get the corners in place, I can come along and finger press the sides down. All right, so the exterior is complete. Now I need to craft my interior. So I'm going to need 5 more squares. And I'm going to repeat that same process. First I will build my tri-folding panel, and then I will build my bi-folding panel. And then I'm going to take the bi panel, lay that right on top of the tri panel. Centering that, I'm going to stitch seam to seam along that bottom edge. And then I'm going to align those sides and stitch from the top to the seam. And then on the remaining side, I'm going to stitch from the seam to the top. That forms the cube. Then I just have to align the base of the side with the side of the base and stitch seam to seam. And that fashions a nice cube. This is the interior, so I can leave it just as it is and open those side seams at each corner and fold them over a 1/2 inch. And I am going to clip those in place temporarily while I get this edge folded over. And then same thing, I can take those edges and finger press them. You're welcome to take this to the iron and really press in that seam. But again, this material is fabulous, so finger pressing is more than enough. Now I want to take my interior and fit it inside of my exterior. Okay, now I think it would be nice to add some little webbed handles to the sides of this. So I think I'm going to create 2 webbed handles on each side and 7 inches of this 1-inch webbing should be plenty long enough for that. And I'm just going to tuck the raw edges of the webbing down in between the interior and the exterior layers of this, only about a 1/2 inch. And those are about a 1/2 inch from each seam as well. And then I want to make sure my handles are the same height. Oh, it's so cute. And now the next step is for me to put this up on the machine deck and stitch all the way around the perimeter. So I like to start at one of the handles so that I can get those clips and pins out of the way and make sure that that's secured. And I'm just aligning that right hand edge of my presser foot with that top edge of the fabric. When I get to the handle, I'm going to go ahead and back stitch over that to reinforce, keeping that fabric from the underside out of my stitching so nothing gets discombobbled. Once you get one of the handles secure, it's a much lower risk situation. And I'm coming up on that second handle, reinforcing with a back stitch. And I made it all the way around. Aw, it's darling. So let's see if it serves its intended purpose. Goals for today. Take notes. Get it done 30 minutes at a time. And the happy list. Yay! Oh, it's a perfect fit. And as mentioned, I feel like I could fit one more of those pads inside of there. And then I have these exterior mesh pockets that are perfect for cute little markers, paper clips, binder clips, and maybe a little sheet of stickers or washi tape. So I hope you enjoyed working in the new space as much as I did. As promised, I want to share a little bit more information with you on how this transformation came together. So initially, this was the storage space where we put all the unpacked boxes and all of the things that we had no idea what to do with when we moved last September. And every time I walked by this room, I just cringed. I absolutely had no idea what I was going to do with the stuff that was inside of here because the rest of the house has already been put together and there is not any extra storage space. I also knew that I had to eventually tackle this room because we have the access to our hot water heater and our HVAC system and then the under stair area off of this room here. So it had to be dealt with. So I waited until this summer when I had a little bit more extra time and I was not in school full time. And one morning I woke up and I was inspired as to what the space would become. I thought that it would make a darling library. It's a pretty small room. It's less than 10 by 10, so about 100 square feet. So after I received that inspiration that perhaps it could be a little library because I knew I had a lot of books packed away in those boxes, I then had the energy that was needed to formulate the plan on how I could get the space cleared out. So the first thing I did was rent a U-Haul because I needed somewhere that I could put the things that were either going to be donated or taken to the dump. So the way that we loaded the U-Haul, the things that were going to the dump were put in the back, and the things that were going to be donated to charity were put towards the front. So then they could go to the charity place and anything that they wouldn't accept could continue on to the dump. Then I ordered the bookcases, which you see behind me. These are Billy bookcases from IKEA. I ordered 3 double bookcases and 4 single bookcases. And then I ordered glass doors, which had a solid partition at the bottom, because I knew that there were some things that I didn't want visible. I knew that behind the glass, I wanted the pretty things. I wanted to be able to see the books and some of my eclectic collections. So that was my vision for the furnishings that were going to go in this room. Then I thought I was going to order myself a new desk, preferably a white desk. But when I was shopping at the Target, I came across these awesome bookcases in their college department. They were less than $40 each, and I knew I already had this oversized white countertop, which is also from IKEA. So I purchased the bookcases and built myself a counter height craft table. And then using cup hooks, I put on a white curtain rod. And this is an Italian tablecloth that I found at Home Goods, which I turned into a little skirt for the front of the table. At the present moment, there is nothing underneath this table. So I have lots of leg room to work. But in the future, if I did need a little bit of extra storage, I could stack up bins nice and tidy underneath of there. If the Target does get any more of those white bookcases back in stock, I'm going to purchase 2 more and put those on the inside so that I have 6 more shelves to add even more functionality to this workspace. I had previously purchased these modular cubes from Michaels, and I took those cubes out of my other space and stacked them up here against this wall. I still need to sort and organize those, but I imagine that's where I'm going to have my yarn, my scrapbooking papers, washi tape, lots of markers, pens, and other fun paper crafting miscellaneous supplies. So I'm really excited about the potential for this space. I absolutely love how it feels in here. I've always been my most creative and happiest in tiny, cozy studios. So let me know what you think of the new space. Let me know if you have a space at home that you're hoping to transform. And hopefully, this will offer you some inspiration. I will say it is a lot easier to do if you have assistance. I actually had the help of my youngest daughter, Isabel. She helped me move all the boxes, load the U-Haul, and then my husband and her took everything to the Goodwill and the Salvation Army for me. And then when I procrastinated putting together the bookcases, which actually were not that hard, I offered to pay Isabel to help me. So that got me over the hump. And then I invited her down one evening after dinner, and she helped me put the books in rainbow order, which really was the finishing touch to this space. So yes, it is a library. Much to my surprise, most of the books on the shelf are actually children's books that I collected from when the kids were little. We have 4 children, so I have a really beautiful collection of children's books that I'm hanging on to. There's no guarantee that there will ever be any grandchildren close by that I can read them to, but they are a huge source of inspiration for me. The colors, the illustrations, even the messages that are inside those pages inspire me. So for the time being, I'm going to hang on to this collection of children's books. And when I'm done being inspired by them, I'll be sure to find them a good home. Thanks so much for spending time with me today, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until then, as always, please know the creative genius in me will be celebrating the creative genius in you. I hope you have a beautiful week.